Okay, so we are in the JavaScript class. Okay, we are in the JavaScript class. We are doing the closures, and still closures is not yet done. So I will do it again, repeat it again, because a lot of things to be learned in closures. And I feel everybody has not understood completely the closures. So let me do the closures again. Now, if I create a function A and I do console.log of A. Okay, I create one function. Let me create another function, but this way I will use different syntax to create a function. I will say var b equal to function. I will say var b equal to function. I will do console.log b. So either I can create function using this method, or I can use the function using this method. Is it right? Yes or no? Today will be a lot of interactive questions, so you have to answer me quickly. I'm expecting at least one answer, then I'll go ahead. Okay, I know everybody may not be able to answer, but those who understand, they should answer. Okay, so this is the one way of creating the function. This is another way of creating the function. What will happen if I do just A? Whether it will print the code of function, that is this part, or it will display A, which is due to this one. What will happen? 1 or 2? This is 1 or 2? 1, right? So when I say A, it will not run this function, but it will show me the code of A, that is this part. So for example, if I say A, you will see I can see the code of A, that is this A. But if I invoke the function like this, then I am getting this value, console.log A. That means it will print A. Okay, so that is the difference between the two. Same with the B. If I say B, I will get the code of the B, that is this code. But if I say B invoking, if I invoke it, I will get this console.log of B, that is this B. So there is a difference. This is called the code of the function, and this is the inside whatever we have written, it will run that and it will execute the code. This is the code, this is the execution. We are invoking the function using the parenthesis. So if I want to see the code, I will just say B. But if I want to invoke the code or execute the code or run the code, I will use the parenthesis. Okay, so this is the basics. I'm just repeating few basics. Let's say I create variable C equal to function, and I have here console.log of C, and I can return also C. It's up to me if I want to return or not, whatever I want to do, or I will return C2. Now if I press enter, this function code will be saved in the C, right? This function code will be saved in the C, and I can execute it later like this C, which we saw in a few minutes back. But I can execute it immediately by putting round bracket here, and I will put the parenthesis here. So instead of executing it at later time, I will execute this function immediately like this. So I put this in the round bracket, and then I am executing, that is I am putting the parenthesis to execute immediately. if I execute immediately, what will be the value of C? Whether it will be the code of this function or it will be this C2 value. What will be the answer, 1 or 2? Everybody is saying 2. That means you have understood it, this part, those who have written C2. Because if I'm executing it, then whatever will be the return value, it will be saved in the C. But if I'm not executing it like this, if I'm putting only this part, okay, I'm not executing it, then this D will consist of this function code. It will not have the C2. It will have this function code. So this is just some basic which I wanted to tell you. So let's enter it, and when I print C, I'm getting the value C2 because I'm executing it. That means whatever the return value will be there, it will be saved in the C, and this code will not be there. Code is gone. So no way I can print this code again because C is now having the value of C2 and I cannot print it again. Okay, so that is the some basics of the function. Now let's go about a closure. So what things you have to remember in the closure? If you have to build some closure, you have to create one function. Okay, function F. So always remember there will be one function and there will be another function which is returning a function. There is a one function and inside that there will be another function which is returned. These two things should be there in the closures. And one more thing we need is one or more variables. Either I can use variable here like var I equal to 1 and I can use here the value of I, or I can pass here some j and I can use j also inside this function. Okay, so these two things should be maintained. What are the things we have to remember? We have to create a function. Definitely, without function there is no closure. Second thing, it should return also a function. And third thing, it should use variables. So let's say this is the 1 number, this is the 2 number, this is 3 number. It should use variable created in 1 number. So what is 1 number? This is the 1 number. So it means 2. This 2 number, this function should use the variable created in 1. What is the variable created in 1? Is this one and this one. And I'm using it in this function. So these things should be there in a closure. So let me run it. And then what I will do, I will create another variable n, and I will invoke the function f by passing some value 2. So when I will do the console of dir, console.dir of n, I will see what are the closure variables. So we have I equal to 1 and j equal to 2 in the closure variables. Okay, since I am using these 2 lines of the code, I and j and I, that's the reason I am getting closure with the 2 variables, I and j. If I would have used only the 1 variable, then here closure would have only 1 variable, even if there are 2 variables here. I will show you that. Okay, so now I want you to create a closure function and name it accordingly and just print that in the chat. I will do one example. You have to name it your own. Okay, so I will say function. I will name it, since my name is Manish, I will create a function Manish, you can create your own function, and it is returning another function, and I am creating one variable. For example, any variable I can create. For example, I will say TV equal to 1, and here I am using this TV variable, console.log TV is TV. Okay, and I'm pressing enter. Then I will create n equal to Manish. Okay, and then I will say, I will invoke the n. I will say TV is 1. So I created this based on my naming convention. Now everybody create this function and create another variable, call the function and execute the function. Maybe you can do in your console.log, and once you get this result, just paste the code in the chat so that I can review it. I will give you 2 minutes to finish this exercise. So Ali has not executed the n variable. So he created the variable n, but you have to invoke that to see this value. Okay, Sonu has also created var s equal to Sonu, but not executed s, not invoked the s, so you won't be able to see this. Okay, so most of you have completed it, and 2 minutes are over. Okay, how? Let me see how everybody has written correctly. How has passed the name? So it's a different way. That's also correct. Okay. So everybody has done this correctly. Now let's make this little bit different. I will use this one, but see, I'm using this line. Can you see? I have to use this line also, and I'm using this line also. So in the next example, which I will do, I will merge these two. Okay. So to merge these two, instead of Manish here, I will call this function here. So I will call the function and I will invoke it immediately. So rather than writing the 2 lines of the code, I will go with the 1 line of code. For example, I will say var n equal to, and I will Yeah. So I will copy this function and I will put it in the parenthesis, this function. I will remove the name. I don't need the name because I have the name n here. And I will execute it immediately. So like previously I showed you, I can execute immediately. So instead of executing in the new line, I'm writing the function, the Manish function, which is this one. I'm writing this function same in the parenthesis and I'm executing it immediately here. So I will avoid these two lines of the code. One is this, one is this. So I'm writing both in the one line of the code. Okay, so will this work as this one? Yes or no? Is this will work? Yes. Why it will work? Because instead of writing this Manish here, I'm writing the function which is same as this one and I'm invoking immediately as I'm creating this function. Okay, I'm invoking so that my n will get this return function. So I'm avoiding these two lines. Directly I will invoke then n because n is already a return function which is this one. Let me show you. I press enter. If I check n is nothing but this one because n got the return value. This is this function. And if I do if I invoke the n, I will get t is 1. So only thing, the difference is here I have to write the two lines of the code. And here I am writing one line of the code. So it's up to you. If you want to avoid one line, you can write this directly. So whatever function you created in couple of minutes back, just convert that into this simple one line and execute it. So one line will be this, one line will be this, and second line will be execution. So just convert your function into one line and then execute it. You have 1 minute to do. You can copy the things and paste it. Okay, how is done one function, one line? It's correct. Anand has done one line. Okay, 3 people have done. Forgot the equal. Okay, it's okay. Okay, 4 people have done. 5. Okay, now is how has done the things which I'm showing you now. Now see, this TV value is 1 and I cannot change this TV value because I am creating it here. So instead of creating it here, I will pass it from here. Okay, and here I will say, for example, 2. Previously I was only be able to have 1, but here I am passing it from external thing. So I will pass it from here and I will see if it is working fine. So I'm getting 2. So instead of writing it here hard coded, I am passing it from here. So now whatever you have done previously, just pass it from external. Don't create it here. How I already done from external, I want others to do Just pass it from external rather than internal. Okay, Anand is done. Ola is done. Those who are not able to answer it, at least they can do it or write it, but they are not putting in the chat, but at least they should do it so that they get idea of what's going on. If you don't do it, you will be lost in some time. Okay, yeah. So Nikhil is, you know, you cannot pass 2 in the second line. Okay, let me show you. So Nikhil has done like this. So, or not like this. Okay, so you cannot pass n2. You have to pass 2 in the creation only. So here is the function you created. You have put this as empty here, and then you created n of 2. That is not right. Why it is not right? Because this function is expecting parameter, so it should pass from here, not from here. Because once I run this part, n will be this part, and this does not take any parameter. So n of 2 will not work, because this TV should go here, not here. Because when I run this one, this function will be returned to n, and this does not have the parameter. Okay, so this will not work. So you have to modify it, pass 2 here, and if this is taking parameter, that you have to pass it here. Is it clear? If it is not, just ask me. Okay, let me open the new tab. Okay, yeah. So Dusty has put soap and soap. So it is a little confusing what he wants to pass. So just he has put the desti function desti. So unless you want to use this desti inside the function, you cannot use desti. Okay, so I will explain one more example. So if I use this function, I'm executing this function. So if I need here parameter, for example, I pass a. So if I want expecting a here, I have to pass a here. Okay, and if I'm returning a function and it's saying console.log of a is a. So once this code will be executed, D will be having this function. So I cannot call D of 1 because this is not expecting a parameter. So D of 1 is not right. You have to pass the parameter here. You have to pass the parameter here, not here. But if we have some parameter here like D, okay, we have the parameter B, then you have to pass this parameter B here too. So A is 1, which is coming from here, and B is 2, which is coming from here. Okay, so there is a difference. And I cannot, some people have written the name here, Desti, right? So putting this name is not useful because we are not using this name anywhere. We are assigning this function to D. So this one we are not using anyway. So unless you are not planning to use here somewhere inside this function, then you don't put the name. You can put the name, it's optional, it's not wrong. But since we are not using it, It's optional, you use it or not, but I would prefer not to put the name unless I plan to use it. Okay, let's create another one. Let me create another tab. Okay, sorry, I have to create another tab. Okay, I create a variable a equal to 1. Then I create variable n equal to function. Then I give the function here, I close it, I invoke it, and here I will return a function. Always remember this pattern. Whenever you want to do closure, whenever I will say create a closure, just remember this pattern. You have to do something like this one. So I will return a function, and here I will pass some parameter b, which will come from here. So this b is coming from here, and I will create another one var c equal to 1, and I'm using d here, and here I'm saying console.log a is a, b is b, c is c, and d is d. Okay, so a is coming from here. I'm putting it here. Since it is global, I can access it here. B is coming from here, C is coming from here, and D is coming from here. So where will I put D? I will not call D here or anywhere. I will call D when I will invoke the n, because n is nothing but this function. So when I will run the n, I have to put D. Okay, let me create this one. Okay, let me put C as 3, and I will pass D as a 4. Okay, now I will say n of 4. Okay, when I say n of 4, you will see A is 1, which is coming from here, B is 2, which is coming from here, C is 3, which is coming from here, and D is 4. If I do console.dir of n, which is nothing but this n, and we'll see the closure property. So in the closure, you will see I have only two things, b equal to 2 and c equal to 3. That is this b and this 3. I'm not seeing the closure of a, and also I'm not seeing the closure of d. The reason is closure properties are those which are in the parent function. This is the parent function. So this properties are there in the closure. The global one will not go because global is accessed anywhere. So I won't see global in the closure. And this d is also a local variable to this function, which is available anyhow. So we are not able to see the d also because this is the local variable to this function. But these two are coming from the parent, and that is the reason. One second. Okay, so in the closure we have only the two variables b and c, that is this and this, because these are the in the parent function, and this is the closure function which is moves to the global space. So it is only considering this and this as the closure variable, but not this and not this. Is that clear? Do you understand that what variables will come inside the closure? Closure will take only the variables in the parent function, not the global one and not the local one. Okay, let's modify it a little bit more. I will create one more variable here, var e equal to 5. Okay, but I'm not using this e here in the console.log. I just created e here. Now let's see what happens when I do console.dir of n. You will see closure is not using e here. Why it is not using? Though it is created in the parent function, but it is not used inside this function, and therefore this e variable does not work as a closure. All the variables which I am using here will come under the closure, and we will not get this e in the closure because we are not using this inside this function. So even if this function is returned to the global space, it is not using e. So for this function, e is non-existent. This function has closure only these two variables. Okay. Let's go to the problem which we were doing yesterday. Okay. So let me create var n equal to a function. I will invoke it here only. So let me create a function. I will invoke it here only. And inside this function, I will create a variable array, which is nothing but array. And then I will go with the for loop var I equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. Okay, here I will say array of I. If I pass as I directly, since this is not a function, so not a closure, and then it will get the proper value of 0, 1, and 2 as we go to the for loop. But the problem yesterday came when I create a function. When I create a function and I return, if I say console.log of I, so the problem will come here when I use the function. So what is happening here? This is the parent function, and we are returning this function to the global space. So I will say return. If I am returning the array, that means I am returning 3 functions to the global space with the name of the array. Okay, with the key of the ARR. So what happened? This becomes the closure function, and then it can access the variable from the parent function, that is I. It can also access array, but we don't want to put array inside it. We don't need it. We need only the I. So what happened? It can access the I in this top parent function, and when I run it, this will be returned to the global space, and when I execute it, it will run this function, and when it will run this function, it will see what is the value of I. What is the current value of I? Since because of for loop, I has moved plus 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 to 3. So when I execute this function, it will say I is 3 always. So if I press enter now, and I will check the console.dir of n. Okay, so each function has its own closure. So it is saying I equal to 3 because when I run this function, it is referring I to the parent function, and this I has reached to 0.3, and that is the reason when I run this 0, I value is 3. When I run the 1, I value is 3. When I run the 2, I value is 3 again. So in all the cases, we are getting I value 3 because closure function take the variable from the parent function, and it can show the updated value of the parent function. And updated value of parent function because of I plus plus has reached to 3. So whenever I run like n of 0, and whenever I execute this, it is saying I is 3 because it is getting the updated value of the I, that is 3. Is this part clear? Why it is getting 3? Just tell me only this part. Why it is getting I value is 3? Because it is going to the parent, and parent has updated value of I equal to 3. Is this part clear? Okay, so those who are not, those who are still in doubt, they can ask the question now. Otherwise, they have to do this again and again to understand what is happening. If you ask me what is your doubt, I will better help you. For loop will run immediately. When I invoke the n, for loop will run immediately, and it will save this function, that is the code of this function. It will not save the, it will not execute this function, but it will save this code of function immediately to the array of I, and it will return array immediately. But when I use this one, n0 of function, execute this n0, at that time this function will be executed for the array 0, and it will go and check what is the value of I. It will see the value, the latest value of I is 3, so it will display 3. So this for loop will run immediately, but this function code will save in this variable, but the code will be saved. Not it will, this one will not execute it. We are not executing it here. We are just writing the code here to this variable. Okay, so code, this will be executed when I will run this part. Okay, even if you are not clear, then I will ask again this question in few minutes. Now everybody write this in your text editor or in your console.log and save it somewhere, because we will be modifying this function. Okay, save this part of the code. Write down. I have opened this. Either write down in the text editor. Once you're done, let me know. I will move further. Okay, now I will give you one challenge. Once everyone is done, I will give you challenge. 2 people have said done. I need 3, 4 confirmation. Okay, I got 4 confirmation. Now you have understood how to create the closure. Okay, and we will see that this is a closure. Why it is closure? Because this is the parent function, and this function we are returning to the global space. So this is the one kind of closure. Now I want you to modify this code. I will show the answer in few minutes, but I want you to work on this. I want you to modify this part of the code, only this part of the code, and make another closure. So we have one closure here. So make another closure here. Okay, like this we have closure, right? This is a closure. So make this as a closure and pass I as a parameter in the closure and invoke it immediately. So you remember a few minutes back we were invoking it immediately and we were passing the parameter. You remember, like Dusty has passed a TV, or they are passing computer, someone is passing pizza, something like that. I don't know what you're passing. So only make this part as another closure. So you can have some closure like this, whatever closure you have learned. Okay, let me copy some code. Okay, I will not copy. I'll just tell you what to do. Convert this to another closure. When I say closure, that means there will be 2 functions. Always remember, closure have one function which is outside. One function is outside, like this, which we execute it like this, and another function will be returning it. like this. Okay. So when I'm saying to convert this function to the closure, that means I need this structure. This is the structure for the closure. So we need to put the structure here instead of this one, and we have to pass I here. And here you can name it something differently. Let's say parameter. Okay, something like that you have to do, so that console.log should be there, and this part should be. I'm not telling. I have given this hint. So this function should be converted to closure, another closure. We have one closure here. We want another closure here. And put the console.log anywhere in between this. You have to see what is the proper place and give me the result. So put, instead of this function, make a closure function and copy and paste in the chat so that I can see if you have done it properly or not. So what is the task? Convert this part to another closure. So that this, you will use this part, but this whole function will be converted to the closure. And let me see who else who can do that. When I say closure, then you have to use this format. This is the important code of closure. So I can say base or template of the closure. So Anand has passed I and used the I in this. So I don't want you to overlap the I variable inside this closure function. So inside, see, I have used the param and Anand is using I. So if you use I here, you don't put I here. Okay, this I is coming from this I, but here you should change it to some different one. You cannot use I at both the places. So change this to some different one, because we are passing I this from here, but when it goes into the function, it should have different name. Otherwise, you will confuse what is this I and what is this I. Whether we are passing I this I from here, or I am passing this I from here. Okay, let me see how. Function index, return function, I index, I. Yeah, how has written correct? Let me see other people's answer. Anand. Yeah, I param. Here use the param correctly. Desti greeting. Hello. No, 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 no. Desti, no, 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 no. You have to pass I. You are passing just hello. Hello has no meaning in this code. We have to pass I, not the hello, because we have to see whether I is incrementing properly. So if you pass hello, it will be hello in all the cases, and we will not be able to track the value of I. Okay, let me see who is this one, Nikhil. Okay, let me check function param, return function consider param, and I. Right, right. It's correct. So I will give you the answer now. I have given you the hint of this one, which is pretty much everything. Ali, let me see Ali. I don't see full code, Ali. Okay, let me show you Most of you have written correctly. Okay, let me do this. So instead of this function, I have to use another closure, and I will copy paste here. And this I is coming from nothing from here I, which I am passing inside this function as a parameter. This is the attribute I, and this param will go inside it, and it will go. I can use this console.log. I will use param because parameter is coming here. And why it is closer? Because we are getting a variable and we are getting a function also, returning a function. So ultimately this will be nothing this will be nothing but a function of this. And when I will run this with 0, it will show console.log I is 0. Now I will show you why this will work and why previous one was not working. I will give you the explanation also in a couple of minutes. Okay, let's run this first and see. So now when I say n of 0 and I execute it, I am getting 0. And if I say n of 1, it is saying 1. When I say n of 2, it is saying 2, which is correct, and I am expecting this only. So the execution part is same as previous one, but the code is changed little bit, and we are using closure function. And why this closure function is working? Because when we create this function and we pass I here, it goes param here as a new local variable to this one. So this one is getting a param as a local variable. Okay, so this local variable, first time when it runs, this local variable is tied to only the first function. Second time when it will run, this local variable param is tied to second function. And third time it will run, it will be tied to third function, because this function is called again and again, and each time this param will be the local variable, and it will, when I run this console, it is not referring to this I. It is referring to this param, and this param is local, and it is the 3 different variables created because of this local variable. Because since we create this function every time, so whenever we pass I, it is saved. This param will be the 0 in the first time, and it will be local to this function. So when we run this console.log I, this I is not referring to this one. This is referring to this param, and this param is different every time. So it is getting the proper result. Previously what was happening? I was referring to this one because this was the parent of that function. So it was getting the updated value of the I. But in this case, we don't get updated value of I because param is a new local variable to this function. And so this one will work in this case. Is that clear? So even if it is not 100% clear, you just remember that this param is a local variable, and we are referring now to this local variable rather than to this parent variable. So now the closure is different. This is another closure, small closure. So we are seeing closure inside the closure. So this closure inside the closure. So here we have 2 closures. Previously what was having? We were putting only 1 closure. That's the reason it was breaking. So just write down this code, because this is very important code, and this is asked in 4 interviews out of 10 interviews. So just write down and save it. Once you're done, let me know. Okay, so whatever you know, you have to do a lot of practice on this closure to make this closure in your brain. I am trying to make things here so that it is clear in your brain how the closure works. But since this topic is little complex, so you should practice more and more on the closure when you get time. We will see more examples tomorrow. Okay, I'm done with today's closure part, and I will show you 3-4 more examples on the closure. By the time you try to learn this template of the closure, because whenever I will say create a closure, so you have to just follow this template and do that template. Okay, so that is all for about a closure. So just I will now